Today we are interviewing Megan Smith, the CEO of Symbia Logistics. It's a pleasure to be interviewing you today. My name is Suresh Jasti. I'm a sophomore at Homedale High School and the founder and president of CompanyRoots. This is my partner, Rahul Kavuru.
My name is Rahul Kavuru. I'm an 8th grader at Oak Hill Academy and the vice president of CompanyRoots. Before the interview, we just want to thank you for taking your time. The first question that we always ask is, what were your company roots and how did they help you get into Symbia?
Okay, well, nice to meet you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. And let's see, so my roots actually are, heavily rooted in my family. So I'm third generation in the pallet industry. But in terms of Symbia Logistics, the company was founded in 2009. And I became the CEO in 2009 as well. And it was founded by my father and one of our old business partners, but I purchased my shares along with another woman, and over the years was able to buy her out as well and keep it all in the family. So that's kind of where my roots come from. I'm third generation, third-party logistics and supply chain management. So I grew up in a warehouse.
Wow. Was there any person that really motivated you to go into Symbia and the logistics industry?
Yeah, I mean, as you can probably imagine, my family, right? My dad's been a huge mentor for me my whole life. I would also say that my stepfather was a pretty influential person in my life, wanting to be an entrepreneur. He was a business person himself. So growing up, I was surrounded by lots of people, going out there and taking risks. And as part of the family, I was kind of part of those risks too.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the experience and the work environment when you're working with your father?
Well, it's definitely unique. It never ends, right? It was my birthday on Sunday, and we went out to dinner last week. And of course, it's hard not to talk about business, right? You want to enjoy all the personal things and enjoy each other, but sometimes you also want to talk about business because there are exciting things happening. And so that's probably the most unique part of it, is just finding that personal balance and maintaining that part of your relationship too.
So, what exactly does Symbia do for all of our viewers that don't exactly understand the ins and outs of a logistics corporation?
Okay, so traditionally speaking, logistics includes everything from warehousing, distribution, transportation. So we do provide the gamut of logistics services. Particularly, I work with a global company called Brambles, and my customer is one of their subsidiaries, which is called CHEP. And CHEP is the world's largest manufacturer of wooden pallets.
Wow.
And so I manufacture a significant portion of their pallets here in the United States, and I service 16 of their different distribution centers and service centers throughout the United States, and I have one in Canada.
Yeah.
To put that into scope, I manage about 15 million pallets a year that we touch. So the total pool of pallets is 580 million, and I manage about 15 of them. So
yeah, that's amazing.
So you have many locations in the U.S., such as New Jersey, where we live. So are you ever planning to go international with your business? Yeah,
so we have our current operation in Calgary, and that's kind of our first step with CHEP into international waters. We used to own a company called Amware, which is what you see in New Jersey. That little marker on my website actually represents Amware, which is an e-fulfillment company. And so we had operations in the Toronto area with them as well. So we've been international before, but we're definitely pushing to grow internationally in specific markets, especially with our current customer. Those markets, being Canada and Europe, South America, trying to keep things manageable from a travel perspective too. We try to run a really lean organization, and it is family owned and operated. So a lot of our success is contingent on us being able to touch and feel and, get into the actual facility. So the further away we go, the harder that becomes.
Yeah.
So your company's spread all over the U.S. from like Arizona to New Jersey. So how often do you travel?
All the time. Last week I was in California. 2 weeks ago I was in Las Vegas. So, that's another part of being an entrepreneur is people think it's so glamorous. They're like, oh, you get to travel all the time. And I'm like, well, even though I'm traveling, I'm working. So, again, trying to kind of put that balance in there where if I'm going to go somewhere, like, for example, I was in California, a meeting in the Mountain View, Santa Clara area, but I went to college out in California in that area, so I met up with a friend for lunch. And so just trying to always find that, happy medium of not working too hard. But yeah, I travel all the time.
So do you travel with like a team or do you travel like by yourself? How does that work?
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the project. If we're doing a startup, then usually there's a whole group of us that fly out for the startup. So historically, I've had my human resources people in Atlanta, and so they'll fly, to wherever location it is that we're opening. Some of my operations people are in Southern California. Some of them are in Texas. So we kind of pool our top executive team members to go to these startups and do the hiring, transition current staff if there is a current staff. And if there's not, really we're part of the startup from the ground up. So the engineering of the manufacturing lines or the sort lines, procuring of materials and equipment, things like that. And that takes a whole team. Now, if I'm just going for more of a business development, customer relations type meeting, a lot of times I go by myself. Or I take a strategic partner, maybe my president, who would be Tom Flynn, my dad. My sister's now working with us. She's a partner of mine, but she's actively working with me now. So I might bring her along as well. Just depends.
So, I mean, your dad and your sister, they're all involved in this company. It's a family corporation, which I think is what makes it so, like, unique for all the other people. Because when you see, like, logistics companies and corporations, they're all, like, they have a board of directors. It's, like, people from everywhere. But you guys are family-owned. So how do you think that business, like, that model of, like, having your leaders being everyone that you see, like, on a daily basis, really, how does that impact your workspace?
Well, it holds people accountable, that's for sure. The level of transparency is much more transparent. We're very transparent with each other. Without being totally transparent, we really wouldn't get anywhere. So it's easy to call people's bluffs. If somebody says they're going to do something and they don't, well, you see them the next day. You don't have to really wait for... yes. But you also don't have to wait for that, level of kind of political approval where you do with a lot of VC funded or, bank funded corporations. They've got these huge corporate ladders that they have to go through. And to make one decision, you've got to touch 25 different people. Well, for us, it's a lot easier. You just go direct to that point of contact. So again, kind of going back to that, running a very lean organization too. Everybody works really hard. The rewards have been great, but the work has been really hard. So
yeah.
So when you employ people, do you look for hard work as like working hard and like having motivation as like a huge factor?
Yeah. We kind of adopted this philosophy that we look for A players. So an A player is somebody who's a standout player. And so that just depends on which job, you're looking to hire, but we trickled that down all the way through our recruiting process to say, even on the ground level, they need to be A players. Our line workers are a significant part of our team at this point, and those are the most important people. So we want to make sure that those people are, first of all, being treated like A players, but that we find A players too. So it's kind of that balance of, finding them and then retaining them. In a manufacturing setting, retaining, hardworking, great employees is very difficult, and it's very important, because the higher turnover you have, the more money you're spending to find new people. So for us, it's all about finding those A players and then keeping them.
Yeah. Yesterday, we were in an interview with Courtney Grange from FOYE, and he said it kind of like this. You have A players, B players, C players, and D players. An A player can only get another A player. A B player can only get a C player or a B player. So I guess you and your family are A players, and you're just trying to get everybody in that same range without getting anyone.
I like to think, and especially right now, there's an interesting phenomenon in the logistics industry. I mean, when you think of everything that's going on with blockchain and all that, right? That's a huge disruptor. But another really interesting aspect of the environment is that there are a lot of people like my dad who are retiring or leaving the industry, and there aren't a lot of young people coming up in this industry. There aren't a lot of young people who studied logistics or supply chain management or really even have any idea what it is. So, it's kind of it influenced our strategy in finding A players because a lot of them are becoming available in one way or another. Because there has been this massive consolidation happening with, the big VC companies, and then a big proportion of people leaving the industry, whether they're just done, they want to retire and their kids didn't show any interest, or they just want to sell out and exit. So that's all kind of happening at the same time. And so the availability of A players has been bigger the last couple of years for us, and we've been able to capture some of those A players, especially in the pallet world, which is a very tribal kind of knowledge. That's what I like to say. It's if you've been in it, then you know it. If you've never been in it, it's really hard to understand and learn unless you kind of came up from the bottom. So that's our strategy.
What do you look for when you're promoting the A players that you already have? What's the scale of promotion? Is it hierarchical? Is it like a hierarchy? Is it more democratic?
It's, I would say, very hierarchical, but that's changing to being more democratic, just because business philosophies in general have changed quite a bit. We used to run a very top-down organization, but we had business partners who made it very difficult to run a more democratic organization. Now that we're just our family, it's become much more democratic. And, sometimes that's to the chagrin of people who prefer running a top-down organization, but I bring kind of that softer touch, being a woman, having strong soft skills, people skills, and realizing that the real value of our business is our people.
Yeah.
And so just kind of creating a more democratic environment is important to me, and it's become a necessary thing to survive, in the competitive world that we're in the job market that we're in. It's changed significantly over the past couple of years, and we've had a hard time finding A players, for frontline jobs. And it's kind of, again, it's this merging of all these events happening at one time.
So you're overseeing a workforce of over 1,200 employees.
That's a lot.
How have you grown to get to the level where you are such a large force in the industry?
Differentiation is what I would say. We've managed to differentiate ourselves in valuable ways for our customer. The first step in that kind of was by getting this Minority Women Business Enterprise certification. Yeah. But then also showcasing that, the years and years of experience that we have in this industry are more valuable than anything else. And the customers tried to work with other people who maybe don't have, the same level of experience, the same talent within their organization. And so differentiating ourselves by finding those real value adds and becoming more of a partner with our customer instead of a supplier.
So Symbia has clients ranging from Shep, Nestle, ExxonMobil, and IBM. So how do you get such big corporations on your side, and how do you keep brand loyalty with them?
That's a great question, multifaceted. So in this industry, in my industry, there are significant barriers to entry. You need a lot of space, capital, machinery to do some of those things. So having the ability to offer that quality and level of service, first and foremost, has been huge in differentiating myself and getting new customers and maintaining customers as well. Being able to walk into a networking event or a one-on-one and saying, well, I already work with these global customers, for me, I mean, that already puts me ahead of the pack, right? In order to maintain that, it's providing that level of service that nobody else is. It's that soft touch. It's that the follow-up that they're not expecting. You know, if you're thinking of working with a huge 3PL, they're not going to be as hands-on. You're going to deal with a lot more politics. When we say we're going to do something, we get it done. And so that's it's been huge for us. You know, it really has, because people enjoy working with doers, people who achieve things, and they want to be associated with doers and achievers. So it's kind of, again, like you were saying, that A players find A players. And so when you meet some of these, you know, supplier procurement people, you know, that you're meeting with A players most of the time, especially in some of these, you know, really, you know, big Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. You're dealing with another A player, so they can see that right off the bat too.
Yeah.
So I noticed that you have been with all your companies for over 5 years. So would you say loyalty is one of the biggest qualities a team of a company should have?
Oh yeah. You know, I think, and again, things have changed so much over the last 5-10 years in business in general, business practice, the way that we view customers, suppliers, and really I think it's all about becoming partners. That's where it's going. That's where we've been successful in achieving that kind of longevity and that, you know, great customer retention, is by becoming partners, by saying, hey, we want to see you achieve. So how can we scale? How can we grow? How can we invest in you so that the investment we're making in you, you know, has an ROI, us and for you. Mm-hmm. And so everybody likes that. Everybody wants a win-win situation, and we've been really good at doing that for our customers.
Yeah. So you've been involved with several other companies such as Gibberish Clothing and Unity Boutique. What one piece of advice has allowed you to be successful in other businesses except Symbia?
Well, again, I think it's all about differentiation. Unity, it was a clothing boutique, but we specialized in kind of green and eco-friendly clothing and accessories, but this was long before anybody else was doing it. Yeah. So that's what made us different. That's what made us unique. Gibberish has a real connection with the snow sport industry. So it's not just a men's line of clothing. It's a snow sport active lifestyle brand. So they get a lot of loyalty from their customers that way, and they're differentiating themselves. Yeah. So for me, I learned this early on in my business school education, but writing a lot of business plans and doing a lot of that, you know, coursework, I found myself asking, well, what makes me different? You know, you can write a business plan for a pet store or a car wash. I mean, you can do all these things. They already exist. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to be different? How are you going to get customers? How are you going to get that loyalty? And what's going to make you, what's that value add, that value proposition that you're offering to your customers? So really for me, it's always been about what makes me different? How can I differentiate myself and leverage my, you know, abilities?
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that you're actually a diving coach. So how do you manage that work life with the work life? Like, what's the difference between that work life than the work life at Symbia?
Okay, well, I was a diving coach. So that, I was doing that. Actually, I was doing that at the same time as I was the CEO. I was on my 4th year of coaching. I wanted to see it through. Again, it's that A-player mentality. I started with a group of freshmen, and I wanted to see them through their senior year. And so that was when I decided that I could no longer coach, was when I started doing Symbia on top of it all, and I needed to start traveling. And it was like, you know what, this is just not worth it for me anymore.
Yeah.
I coached at the high school that I went to, and I was a diver on that team, and I took over the position from my coach. So again, great relationships, and that's really what it was all about. I learned a lot of empathy being a coach, learning how to say, you know, not everything's going to be perfect all the time. Not everybody's going to perform perfect all the time, and that's okay. And that was something that I had never really been okay with in my life. I always wanted to be perfect in everything that I did.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of my first dose of showing, being empathetic for other people. You're sick today, you don't feel good, that's okay. And not, being able to force them through it. And then taking that into Symbia, and with 1,200, well, now we're up to 1,500 associates, and just understanding that not every day is going to be a perfect day for all of those people, right? Mm-hmm. So it taught me a lot of those soft skills, how to really work with people and bring out the best in them.
That's kind of ironic, since like you took the position of your coach and then you're in the same business that you are as your father. So
yeah. Again, I like to build pretty strong relationships. Once I am connected with someone, then I feel a personal debt to them as well. So yeah, my coach has also been kind of a mentor for me, and she was the counselor at my high school as well. So I like to, I personally think that those relationships have seen me through to success. And I will say that through a little shout out to Willie Johnson, who's the supplier diversity procurement officer over at CHEP, and without him, none of this would have been possible for me. He really believed in me from the beginning, and he had a superior who didn't, and she ended up leaving. And when he took over her position, he said, all right, let's make this happen. How can we do this? I believe in you. So it's, for me, always been about those, relationships, really getting close with the right people.
Yeah. And I mean, the same thing has been for us and all of our friends as well. When I first got the idea of doing CompanyRoots, it was more of like me trying to mirror what my sister did. She interviewed a bunch of doctors before, trying to get their experiences and using it for a school project back in like 7th grade, I think. But then at that time, I was a 5th grader, and I was like, hey, I want to do something like this for what I'm passionate about. And it took me a while to actually find that passion in the first place. But then I went on to ABC, just watching some TV, came across Shark Tank, boom, passion.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So you know that we did all the fulfillment for Bombas socks, and we helped scale that business as well. Mm-hmm. They were doing about 1,000 orders a month, and then at their peak, it's like 80,000. They've since moved their distribution out of the country to be closer to the manufacturer, but offering a more vertical solution. But yeah, we were a pretty pivotal part of that growth. And funny enough, Damon Johns was at an event that I was at last year too, and I was sponsoring the event, and he spoke, so I got to meet him. So again, just following that dream and that passion, you never know who you're going to come across and who you're going to meet. And yeah, maybe someday we'll meet in person, and then I'll be fulfilling more Shark Tank products.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my favorite episodes, because I think that was the one where I think like Damon John came in at the last second. He said, I'll give you this deal. So
yeah. So
yeah, well, go ahead.
To end all of our interviews, we have one signature question. What advice would you give to the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders looking to pursue their passions in high school and in middle school?
Well, the advice that I would give, especially in middle school and high school, is listen to your heart, listen to your dreams, go after what you believe in. I was a singer in high school too, and everybody always thought, oh, you're going to go to Nashville and you're going to sing. And I was an athlete too, and I just didn't see the return on my investment there. It seemed like a very risky chance to take. And so that's why I chose business. And it was the right choice, because I listened to my heart, and I'm able to actually now bring all those things that I really like, my hobbies and everything, together into one passion. And so for me, it would be go after what you really believe in, and don't let anybody tell you no, because anything's possible.
Definitely. Today we interviewed Megan Smith, the CEO and founder of Symbia Logistics. Thank you for allowing us to interview you today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.